What if the person you trusted most slowly became the one you couldn't stop thinking about? Ethan believed his life was stable. He had a steady job in downtown Seattle, a clean townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, and a wife he truly loved. From the outside, everything looked right. But inside that house, silence had started to grow. Emily worked late almost every night. She was chasing a promotion at her marketing firm, determined to prove herself. Ethan supported her ambition, but support did not fill the empty chair across from him at dinner. Claire, Emily's mother, began visiting more often that spring. She and her husband Daniel were going through a rough patch. Their arguments were no longer whispers behind closed doors. They were sharp and open, sometimes ending with Claire driving away just to breathe. One Friday evening, Claire arrived for dinner with tired eyes and a tight smile. Daniel followed, quiet and distant. The meal felt forced. Small talk. Polite laughter. Then Daniel's phone rang. He stepped outside to take the call. 10 minutes later, he walked back in with his coat already on. "I've got to handle something," he muttered. Claire didn't argue. She simply nodded. Emily's phone buzzed shortly after. Emergency meeting. She grabbed her bag, kissed Ethan on the cheek, and rushed out, and just like that, Ethan and Claire were alone in the kitchen. Rain tapped against the windows. The house felt too quiet. "I'm sorry about tonight," Claire said softly, stacking plates. "It's fine," Ethan replied. "I'm used to sudden changes." She paused and looked at him carefully. "Used to it?" He shrugged. "Work emergencies. Long hours. It happens. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." Her words landed heavier than expected. He wasn't used to someone noticing his feelings without him explaining them. They washed dishes together. Their movements slow, careful. Conversation drifted from light topics to deeper ones without either planning it. "Daniel and I barely talk anymore," she admitted. "We live in the same house, but it feels like we're miles apart." Ethan nodded. "Emily and I don't fight. We just don't connect like we used to." Claire dried her hands and leaned slightly against the counter. "Distance is quieter than anger. But sometimes it's more dangerous." He met her eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. There was no flirtation. No inappropriate gesture. Just two people standing in shared understanding. When the dishes were done, Claire wrapped her coat around her shoulders. The rain had slowed but hadn't stopped. "Thank you for listening," she said gently. "Anytime," he answered. She stepped closer to hug him goodbye. It was a normal family gesture. Familiar. But her arms lingered just slightly longer than usual. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough to be noticed. As she walked out the door, Ethan felt a strange pull in his chest. Not attraction. Not desire. Something softer. Recognition. That night, he lay awake beside Emily, who was already asleep, her phone resting on the nightstand. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the conversation. He told himself it meant nothing. Just kindness, but kindness can be powerful when someone feels unseen. Over the next week, Claire sent small messages. "Did Emily close her deal? Hope your presentation went well. And sometimes, how are you holding up?" That last question stayed with him. No one had asked him that directly in months. One afternoon, Claire called unexpectedly. Her voice sounded tight. "Daniel and I argued again," she said. "I can't sit in that house right now." Emily was still at work. Ethan hesitated only a moment before saying, "You can come here." When she arrived, she looked composed but fragile. He made tea. They sat at the dining table, steam rising between them. "I feel invisible," she admitted quietly. "Like I gave my best years to a marriage that slowly forgot me." Ethan felt the weight of her words. "I know that feeling." She looked up sharply. "You do?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "It feels like I'm cheering from the sidelines of my own marriage." Silence filled the room, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. Claire reached across the table and gently touched his hand. "You deserve to be seen too." The contact was brief. Simple. But electricity ran through him anyway. He didn't pull away immediately. That moment stretched longer than it should have. Then she slowly withdrew her hand, as if remembering the boundary that stood between them. I shouldn't put you in this position, she said softly. You're not, he replied quickly, but they both knew something subtle had shifted. When she left that evening, Ethan stood by the window watching her car disappear down the street. Guilt crept in quietly. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Yet he felt as though a line had been brushed. That night, Emily came home late again. She kissed him distractedly and went straight to shower, already talking about deadlines. He listened. He nodded. But his mind wandered. He hated that it wandered. The next weekend, Claire and Daniel hosted a small family lunch. The tension between them was clear. Sharp glances. Short replies. Emily noticed but stayed quiet. At one point, Claire caught Ethan's eye from across the room. Just for a second, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't obvious, but it was charged, and for the first time, Ethan felt something that frightened him. He felt needed. As the afternoon ended, Daniel pulled Claire aside. Their voices rose slightly. Not shouting, but strained. Ethan saw the exhaustion on her face, and when she looked toward him again, there was something new in her expression. A silent question. One he wasn't ready to answer. Driving home that evening, Emily talked about work nonstop. Ethan responded when needed. But his thoughts were elsewhere. He knew this connection with Claire was dangerous. Not because of actions, but because of emotions, and emotions, once awakened, don't easily go back to sleep. By the time they pulled into the driveway, Ethan understood one thing clearly. If he didn't set a boundary soon, something fragile in his life would begin to crack. But deep down, he wasn't sure he wanted to step away, and that realization scared him more than anything else. When does comfort quietly turn into something you can no longer control? After that dinner, Ethan promised himself he would create distance. Fewer conversations. Shorter replies. No private tea talks when Emily wasn't home. It sounded simple in his mind. But real life rarely follows simple plans. Claire continued to visit. Sometimes with Daniel. Sometimes alone. When she came alone, she always had a reason. Dropping off something for Emily. Borrowing a recipe. Returning a book. Small excuses that felt harmless. One Tuesday afternoon, Emily called Ethan from work. Mom might stop by to pick up her jacket. I forgot to give it back. Okay, he said, trying to sound casual. When Claire arrived, she didn't rush. She stood in the living room looking around quietly. Emily works too hard, she said. She does, Ethan replied, and you let her. The comment caught him off guard. It's her career. Claire studied him. And what about yours? What about your marriage? He felt exposed. We're fine. You don't look fine. The air shifted again. Not romantic. Not bold. Just honest. She sat on the couch. He remained standing at first, then slowly sat across from her. The silence between them felt heavy, but neither moved to end it. I never meant to lean on you, she said quietly. But you listen in a way Daniel hasn't in years. Ethan swallowed. You shouldn't depend on me for that. I know. But neither of them stood up. That evening, Claire texted him, I'm sorry if I made things complicated today. He stared at the message longer than he should have. You didn't, he typed back. The reply came quickly, then why does it feel like we're walking a thin line? He didn't answer. Over the next week, the emotional tension grew. They didn't meet secretly. They didn't hide in dark corners. Everything happened in normal spaces. Bright kitchens. Coffee shops. Front yards. Yet the conversations grew more personal. One afternoon, Claire suggested meeting at a cafe near Ethan's office. Just coffee, she wrote. Public place. He hesitated. Then agreed. They sat by the window as rain slid down the glass. People moved around them. No one paid attention. I filed the paperwork, she said suddenly. For what? He asked. For separation. His heart skipped. Claire, it's been broken for years, she said firmly. This isn't about you. But the way she looked at him said it wasn't completely unrelated. I don't want to be the reason, he said. You're not the reason, she replied. You're the reminder. Reminder of what? That I still want to feel something. The honesty shook him. He leaned back in his chair. This is dangerous. I know. Then why are we here? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached for her coffee, her hand slightly trembling. Because I feel seen, she whispered. Those words echoed inside him. He felt seen too. And that was the problem. At home, Emily remained unaware. She was stressed about a new client. Long nights became normal again. One evening, she fell asleep on the couch with her laptop open. Ethan gently closed it and covered her with a blanket. He stared at her face in the soft light. He loved her. That hadn't changed, but love and loneliness were now sitting side by side. The following weekend, Daniel showed up unexpectedly at Ethan's house. His face was tense. Is Claire here? He asked sharply. No, Ethan replied calmly. Daniel stepped closer. She's been distant. Secretive. Ethan kept his expression steady. Maybe she's tired of fighting. Daniel's eyes narrowed. If there's something I should know, I will find out. The warning was clear. After he left, Ethan felt a rush of guilt. Nothing physical had happened. Yet the emotional connection felt undeniable. That night, Claire called again. Daniel suspects something, she admitted. There is something, Ethan said quietly. Yes, she agreed. There is. Silence stretched between them. We haven't crossed a line, he added quickly. Not physically, she said. The truth stung. I don't want to hurt Emily, he said. I don't want that either, Claire replied. She's my daughter. Then we stop, he said firmly. Another pause. Can you? She asked softly. He didn't answer right away. Because he wasn't sure. Days passed. They tried to reduce contact. Fewer messages. Short replies. But emotional energy doesn't disappear overnight. At a family gathering the next Sunday, tension filled the room. Daniel barely spoke. Claire looked distant. Emily sensed something but couldn't name it. At one point, Claire walked into the kitchen alone. Ethan followed a few minutes later to grab a drink. Their eyes met instantly. This is tearing everything apart, he whispered. It was already torn, she replied. That doesn't justify this. I'm not justifying it, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I'm acknowledging it. The weight of reality pressed down on him. From the living room, Emily called his name. He stepped back immediately. We have to be careful, he said. Claire nodded slowly. I know. But as he walked back into the living room, he felt something clear and undeniable. The line they promised not to cross had already blurred, and no matter how careful they tried to be, emotions were moving faster than their promises. By the end of that night, Daniel left early again. Claire stayed behind, claiming she felt tired. Emily went upstairs to take a call. For a brief moment, Ethan and Claire stood alone near the front door. We need distance, he said firmly. Yes, she agreed, but when she stepped forward to hug him goodbye, the embrace felt different. Stronger. Longer. Not accidental. He closed his eyes for a second, just 1 second. When she pulled away, her voice was barely above a whisper. This is going too far. And for the first time, Ethan knew she was right. How do you step back when your heart has already stepped forward? After that long embrace near the door, Ethan knew the situation had crossed into dangerous territory. Nothing physical beyond a hug had happened, yet the emotional weight felt heavier than anything visible. He barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Claire's face and heard her whisper, "This is going too far." The next morning, he avoided his phone. No messages. No calls. He went to work early and buried himself in tasks. Numbers. Emails. Meetings. Anything that kept his mind steady. But around noon, his screen lit up. "Claire, we need to talk." His chest tightened. He didn't answer right away. 10 minutes passed. Then another message appeared. "I told Daniel." Everything inside him froze. He stepped outside the office building for air and called her immediately. "You told him what?" he asked quietly. I told him I'm leaving, she said. Her voice sounded calm, but there was a tremble beneath it. I told him I can't keep pretending this marriage works. Did you mention me? No, she replied firmly. This decision is about years of distance, not just weeks of confusion. He exhaled slowly but didn't feel relief. Claire, this is serious. I know. Emily will be devastated. She already senses something is wrong at home, Claire said softly. She deserves honesty. The word honesty hit him like a weight. Because honesty was exactly what he hadn't given his wife. That evening, Emily came home earlier than usual. Her eyes were red. Mom called, she said quietly. She's leaving Dad. Ethan nodded slowly, careful with his reaction. I'm sorry. She sounded certain, Emily added. Like she's finally decided. Emily sank onto the couch. Ethan sat beside her and held her hand. Guilt burned in his chest. He hated that he had played even a small role in this storm. Do you think there's someone else? Emily asked suddenly, his heart skipped. Why would you think that? She said she needs to feel alive again, Emily replied. That sounds like something changed. Ethan swallowed hard. Sometimes people just reach a breaking point. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. I don't want us to end up like them. Her words pierced him deeply. We won't, he said quickly. But even as he spoke, doubt flickered. The following week was chaotic. Claire moved into a small apartment across town. Daniel was angry but controlled. He told Emily he felt blindsided. He insisted he had tried to fix things. Ethan avoided seeing Claire alone. He ignored 2 of her calls. He responded to messages with short, careful replies. Distance felt necessary now, but one evening, she showed up at the park near his house. He had gone for a run, trying to clear his head. When he saw her sitting on a bench near the lake, his steps slowed. I didn't know where else to go, she said softly when he approached. You shouldn't be here, he replied, though his voice lacked strength. I needed to see you, she admitted. Everything feels different now. He sat at the far end of the bench, leaving space between them. You left your husband, he said. That changes everything. Yes, she answered. But not because of some fantasy. I left because I've been unhappy for years. And what are we? He asked carefully. She turned toward him. We're 2 people who found comfort in the wrong place. Her honesty was sharp but necessary. I never meant for this to grow, she continued. But when someone listens to you, really listens, it feels powerful. He nodded slowly. I felt that too. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. The world looked peaceful, which made the tension between them even stronger. Daniel accused me of emotional betrayal, she said. Quietly. Ethan's chest tightened. What did you say? I didn't deny it. The words settled heavily, because part of me knew he was right, she added. Silence stretched between them. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just real. I don't want to hurt Emily, he said firmly. She's already struggling. Claire's eyes softened. She doesn't know, does she? No, then this is where we stop. The finality in her voice shocked him. You're the one who came here, he reminded her gently. I came for clarity, she replied. Not for continuation. He looked at her carefully. The emotional intensity was still there, but something else had joined it, regret. I thought leaving my marriage would bring freedom, she said. Instead, it forced me to face the truth. What truth? That what I felt with you wasn't love. It was loneliness finding comfort. Her words matched the fear he had been carrying. He nodded slowly. We filled a space that shouldn't have been empty. And now we fix it before it destroys more, she said. The cool breeze passed between them. For a brief second, he imagined a different world. One where circumstances were simpler. Where timing was different. But that world didn't exist. Emily needs you, Claire said softly. And you? He asked. I need to rebuild myself, she replied. Alone. He respected that answer more than he expected. They stood up at the same time. No dramatic gestures. No reckless decisions. Just quiet acceptance. As they walked toward the parking lot, she stopped once more. I'm sorry, she said. For what? He asked. For letting it go this far. He nodded. Me too. They parted without another touch that night. Ethan looked at Emily differently. Not with guilt alone, but with urgency. If he didn't repair what was fragile, silence would return. Emily noticed his focus. You seem different, she said quietly. Maybe I am, he replied, but deep inside, he knew the hardest part was still ahead, because even if the emotional line had finally been drawn, consequences were already in motion, and he had no idea how much damage had already been done. What if the biggest mistake of your life was the one no one else could see? Ethan thought ending things with Claire at the park would bring peace. Instead, it brought silence. Heavy silence. The kind that follows a storm but still leaves broken branches behind. He focused on Emily. He came home early. He cooked dinner. He asked about her day and truly listened. For a while, it almost felt normal again. But something fragile sat between them, like glass that could crack with one wrong move. A week later, Emily asked him to visit her mother's new apartment. She seems lonely, Emily said. I don't want her to feel abandoned. Ethan hesitated for only a second before agreeing. Avoiding Claire forever wasn't realistic. They were still connected through family. The apartment was small but neat. Claire opened the door with a polite smile. Not warm. Not cold. Just careful. Daniel was not there. He had chosen to stay in the house until legal matters were settled. The separation was official now. Dinner was quiet at first. Claire asked about work. Emily talked about her new project at the marketing firm. Ethan kept his tone steady. He avoided eye contact with Claire longer than necessary. The air felt different from before. Clearer. Honest. Then Emily said something unexpected. Dad thinks there was someone else. The words froze the room. Claire looked down at her plate. Ethan kept his face neutral. I told him he was wrong, Emily continued. Mom wouldn't do that. Claire's hand tightened around her fork. Ethan felt heat rise in his chest. This was the moment where truth and silence stood face to face. Claire finally looked up. Daniel is hurt. Hurt people look for reasons. Emily nodded slowly. I just hope this doesn't change how I see either of you. The statement was soft but powerful. After dinner, Emily stepped out to take a call. Claire and Ethan were left alone in the kitchen. The tension returned, but it felt different now. Not electric. Just serious. She deserves better than secrets, Claire said quietly. Ethan agreed. Yes. Claire took a breath. Daniel has been asking questions. He thinks I grew close to someone. And what did you tell him? Ethan asked. I told him I leaned on someone emotionally, she said honestly. But I didn't name you. His heart pounded. Why not? Because it would destroy Emily. The weight of that truth pressed on him. He realized something in that moment. Their connection had not been about passion. It had been about escape. And escape always demands a price. Emily returned, cheerful again, unaware of the storm that almost surfaced. The night ended peacefully. But as they drove home, she seemed thoughtful. Mom looks lighter, she said. Sometimes honesty feels lighter, Ethan replied carefully. Do you think Dad will ever forgive her? I don't know, he answered truthfully. 2 days later, Daniel called Ethan. The call was unexpected. Daniel's voice was calm but direct. I need to ask you something. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Go ahead. Were you the person she leaned on? The question landed without warning. Ethan could lie. He could deny everything. It would be easy. No proof existed. But lies had already shaped too much. Yes, he said quietly. Silence followed. Did it become physical? Daniel asked. No, Ethan replied firmly. It never crossed that line. Another long pause. Daniel exhaled slowly. I suspected as much. You have every right to be angry, Ethan added. I am, Daniel admitted. But not just at you. At myself. I ignored the distance for years. The conversation was not explosive. It was painful but controlled. Two men facing uncomfortable truth. I won't interfere anymore, Ethan said clearly. It ends here. It already has, Daniel replied. But understand this, if Emily ever finds out, it will break her. The call ended with no shouting. Just heavy understanding. That night, Ethan sat alone in the living room. The house felt quiet again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was reflective. He thought about how small choices grow into large consequences. How emotional boundaries mattered just as much as physical ones. Emily came downstairs later, unable to sleep. Can I ask you something? She said softly. Of course. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. He looked at her honestly. I want to be. She studied his face. I don't want us to drift apart like them. We won't, he said with more certainty this time. But it takes effort from both sides. She nodded and leaned against him. Then let's promise to talk. Even when it's hard. He held her hand tightly. Deal. Weeks passed. Claire focused on rebuilding her life. She started therapy. She found a part-time job at a community center. She kept distance from Ethan, except during necessary family gatherings. The emotional intensity slowly faded, replaced by mature respect. Daniel began dating casually. Nothing serious. Just small steps forward. The anger softened into acceptance. One afternoon, months later, all four of them attended Emily's company event. It was awkward at first, but polite. Claire and Daniel stood on opposite sides of the room. Ethan remained by Emily's side. At one point, Claire and Ethan crossed paths near the balcony. No tension. No hidden looks. Just quiet understanding. You look steady, Claire said gently. So do you, he replied. She smiled faintly. We survived our mistake. Yes, he said. And we learned from it. Emily called him from across the room. He turned without hesitation. As he walked back to his wife, he felt something stronger than guilt. Clarity. Love was not about secret comfort. It was about choosing the same person every day, even when boredom, stress, or loneliness tried to distract you. Claire watched from a distance and understood the same truth. Some relationships are meant to awaken you, not to keep you. And as the night ended and everyone stepped into their separate cars, peace finally replaced the tension that had once threatened to ruin them all. The secret had not destroyed their lives, but it had changed them forever.